This is the first Sunday in the Advent season, and our theme for today is preparation, getting ready. We hear that first of all from the words of Isaiah. The text is an indictment concerning the sinfulness of the people. And the verses that follow the verse we have here in our first lesson pick up the theme of God's judgment. But our text is a triumphant vision of a distant future when the temple in Jerusalem would be the focal point for universal peace, knowledge, and righteousness. From the writings of the prophet Isaiah, chapter 2, verses 1 through 5. The word that Isaiah, son of Amos, saw concerning Judah and Jerusalem. In the days to come, the mountain of the Lord's house shall be established as the highest of the mountains, and shall be raised above the hills, and all the nations shall stream to it. Many people shall come and say, "Come, let us go up to the mountain of the Lord, to the house of the God of Jacob, that he may teach us his ways, and that we may walk in his paths. For out of Zion shall go forth instruction, and the word of the Lord from Jerusalem. He shall judge between the nations, and he shall arbitrate for many peoples. They shall beat their swords into plowshares, and their spears into pruning hooks. Nation shall not lift up sword against nation, neither shall they learn war any more. O house of Jacob, come, let us walk in the light of the Lord." Here ends our first lesson. Psalm 122 is one of several songs that are called a psalm of ascent. And by that they refer to the fact that Jerusalem was located at the top of a high hill. So pilgrims coming to Jerusalem to worship and to participate in the holy days had to ascend. They had to climb the hill in order to get there. And they sang as they climbed. They sang as they walked. And the songs that they sang are songs such as the psalm that we have for today in Psalm 122. Please turn to page 279 in the front of the hymnal, 279. And we will read Psalm 122. We'll read it antiphonally. That means I'll read the first half of each verse up to the asterisk. You'll read the second half of the verse. Please note that the first verse of this psalm is a marvelous creed or statement for any of us on a Sunday morning. I was glad when they said to me, "Let us go to the house of the Lord." Now our feet are standing within your gates, O Jerusalem. Jerusalem is built as a city, that is, at unity with itself, to which the tribes go up, the tribes of the Lord, the assembly of Israel, to praise the name of the Lord. For there are the thrones of judgment, the thrones of the house of David. Pray for peace of Jerusalem. May they prosper who love you. Peace be within your walls, and quietness within your towers. For my brethren and my companions' sake, I pray for your prosperity. Because of the house of the Lord our God, I will seek to do you good. The Lutheran Church has set up a series of lessons on a 3-year cycle. And those cycles begin with the first Sunday of Advent. So we are now in cycle A, which means many of our gospel lessons will be from Matthew, and for the time being, many of our New Testament lessons will be from Paul's letter to the Romans. In this case, we find a portion of Paul's ethical teachings, and he's warning them that the time is coming when God is going to return to earth, and so they need to behave accordingly. Now, that sounds very much like the instructions we might have given to our kids when we left them with a sitter and went out for the evening. You better behave, because you don't know when we're going to be back. It's the same instruction I give to my students when I have to leave the classroom for a meeting. Behave. Respect the substitute, because you never know when I'm going to come back. In fact, I've been known to stand out on the sidewalk and peek in through the door to see what's going on when I'm not in the room. In much the same way, did you realize that God is watching you? Not just this morning, but when you're on the highway, when you're in the store, even when you're in your home. From Paul's letter to the Romans, chapter 13, beginning at verse 11. St. Paul writes, "Besides this, you know what time it is, how it is now the moment for you to wake from sleep. For salvation is nearer to us now than when we became believers. The night is far gone, the day is near. Let us then lay aside the works of darkness and put on the armor of light. Let us live honorably as in the day, not reveling in drunkenness, nor in debauchery and licentiousness, not in quarreling and jealousy. Instead, put on the Lord Jesus Christ, and make no provision for the flesh to gratify its desires." Here ends our New Testament lesson. In our gospel, we have one of a block of lessons called Last Day material. When we ended the Pentecost season, we had a number of lessons from this area where Jesus talks about the end of times and its sudden return. We have that here. Jesus is coming again, and he warns the people to be prepared. Be like a Boy Scout, because you don't know when it's going to happen. We rise for the good news of the gospel. This is the gospel according to Matthew, the 24th chapter, beginning at verse 36. Glory to you, O Lord. Jesus said to the disciples, "About that day and hour no one knows, neither the angels of heaven nor the Son, but only the Father. For as in the days of Noah were, so will be the coming of the Son of Man. For in those days before the flood, they were eating and drinking, marrying and giving in marriage, until the day Noah entered the ark. And they knew nothing until the flood came and swept them all away. So too will be the coming of the Son of Man. Then two will be in the field. One will be taken, and one will be left. Two women will be grinding meal together. One will be taken, and one will be left. Keep awake, therefore, for you do not know on what day the Lord is coming. But understand this, if the owner of the house had known in what part of the night the thief was coming, he would have stayed awake and would not have let his house be broken into. Therefore, you also must be ready, for the Son of Man is coming at an unexpected hour." The Gospel of the Lord. Praise to you, Lord Jesus Christ. Please be seated.